What if the shine on your favorite candy was hiding a story your body never agreed to tell, a story that begins in ancient myths of glowing stones and ends quietly inside your bones? Imagine holding a piece of candy so glossy it almost looks with that irresistible mirror-like coating has long been a symbol of freshness, sweetness and fun, yet behind that sparkle there may be a lesser-known character called cerium, a rare earth element that most people have never heard of, but one that quietly travels from industrial processes into places we would never expect, including the food we eat now. This is not about fear, it is about curiosity, because for centuries humans have been fascinated by shine and perfection. Ancient cultures believed that polished surfaces held magical powers, that reflective stones could heal or protect, and that brightness meant purity. Fast forward to modern times and we still chase that same shine, but now it comes from complex chemistry instead of superstition. In the world of candy manufacturing, glossy coatings are often created using polishing agents that can include compounds like cerium oxide, which is widely used in industries to polish glass lenses and even electronic screens because of its ability to create a flawless surface. The surprising part is how something designed to perfect materials can find its way into edible coatings through indirect processing, contamination or shared industrial pathways, and once it enters the body the story becomes even more interesting, because cerium behaves in ways that resemble calcium, the very mineral your bones depend on for strength and structure. This is where science meets a quiet mystery inside your body. Calcium follows a carefully regulated path. It is absorbed in the intestines, guided into the bloodstream and then deposited into bones, where it forms a solid framework that supports your entire body. But when cerium enters this system, it can sometimes mimic calcium closely enough to be taken up by the same biological routes. Imagine a stranger wearing a uniform that looks almost identical to a trusted worker slipping into a system that was never designed to handle them. Over time this can lead to a subtle interference with normal bone mineralization, not a dramatic overnight effect but a slow, quiet disruption that builds with repeated exposure. Researchers studying rare earth elements have observed that certain compounds can accumulate in tissues including bones because the body does not have an efficient way to remove them quickly. This concept is known as bioaccumulation, and it is not new. We have seen it with other elements and compounds throughout history, from lead in pipes to mercury in fish. The difference here is that cerium has not been part of mainstream public discussion, especially when it comes to food, and that creates a gap between what we assume is harmless and what science is still trying to fully understand now. Consider how often we encounter shiny foods, not just candy but coated chocolates, decorative desserts, and even some fruits treated for visual appeal. The cultural obsession with perfect-looking food runs deep, especially in modern society where appearance often influences choice more than substance. Psychologists have shown that people are more likely to perceive glossy or polished items as higher quality even if the nutritional value is unchanged or even compromised. This means that the very feature designed to attract us could also be the one we question the least, and that is where awareness becomes important. Not alarm but awareness, because the human body is remarkably resilient yet also sensitive to long-term patterns. What we consume occasionally may have little effect, but repeated exposure over time can create cumulative changes that are harder to notice in the short term. Bone health itself is a slow-moving process. Your skeleton is constantly renewing itself, breaking down old bone and building new bone in a delicate balance influenced by nutrients, hormones, physical activity and environmental factors. If something interferes with this balance even slightly, it can shift the outcome over years, leading to weaker bones or reduced density. This does not happen suddenly, and it does not point to a single cause, but it highlights how multiple small influences can add up. Now think about the broader context of industrial chemistry. Many compounds used in manufacturing were never originally intended for food, yet modern supply chains are complex and interconnected. Materials move across industries, sometimes sharing processes, equipment, or environments. This creates opportunities for trace elements to appear in unexpected places, and while regulatory systems exist to monitor safety, they are often based on known risks and established thresholds, leaving emerging questions to ongoing research. Cerium oxide itself has been studied for various uses, including medical imaging and environmental applications, but its interaction with human biology, especially through ingestion, is still being explored. Scientists are particularly interested in how it behaves at the cellular level, how it interacts with enzymes, and how it influences oxidative processes, because bones are not just static structures, they are living tissues with active cells that respond to chemical signals and environmental inputs. If a foreign element alters those signals even subtly, it could change how bone cells function over time. Adding another layer to the story is The psychological comfort we associate with treats candy is often linked to celebration childhood memories and emotional rewards. This connection can make it harder to question what goes into these foods because they are tied to positive experiences, yet history shows that many things once considered safe or even beneficial were later re-evaluated as new evidence emerged, from certain food additives to packaging materials. The lesson is not to avoid everything unfamiliar but to stay curious and informed, to understand that science evolves and that our knowledge of how substances interact with the body continues to grow. So where does this leave us when it comes to that shiny candy in your hand? It brings us back to balance and perspective. Enjoying a treat occasionally is unlikely to define your health, but being aware of what contributes to your overall exposure helps you make more informed choices, choosing foods with simpler ingredients, supporting transparency in food production, and paying attention to how often highly processed items appear in your diet are small steps that can make a difference over time. It also reminds us that beauty in food does not always equal value. Sometimes the most nourishing options are the ones that look less perfect, less polished, and more natural because they have not been altered to meet visual expectations. In the end, the story of cerium in candy coatings is not just about one element. It is about the intersection of culture, science, and perception. It is about how our desire for shine and perfection can lead us to overlook deeper questions, and how even the smallest details can have complex pathways through the body. It challenges us to think about what we consume, not just in terms of taste or appearance, but in terms of long-term impact and connection to our overall well-being. And as research continues to uncover more about how rare earth elements interact with human biology, we gain a clearer picture of the invisible journeys that begin with everyday choices. So next time you see that glossy finish, you might pause for a moment, not out of fear but out of curiosity, recognizing that behind every shine there is a story waiting to be understood. And if you found this eye-opening and want to explore more hidden stories behind everyday foods, make sure to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more content that uncovers the science and stories shaping your health.